The topic of cremation and its implications for the resurrection has long been a subject of debate within the Christian community. Many Christians wonder whether being cremated affects the possibility of resurrection at the second coming of Jesus Christ. While the Bible does not provide explicit directives on this matter, it offers some guidance and principles that can help us explore the question of whether Jesus will raise the cremated. In this video, we will delve into the biblical perspective on cremation, its historical context, and the beliefs surrounding it among Christians. Cremation in biblical times. Cremation was practiced in ancient times, but it was not a common practice among the Israelites or New Testament believers. In the culture of biblical times, burial was the predominant way of laying a body to rest after death. Bodies were often interred in tombs, caves, or in the ground. While the Bible does not explicitly command burial as the sole method of disposing of a body, it does provide insights into the origin of humanity and the ultimate destiny of our physical bodies. Genesis 3:19, a foundational verse, states, "You return to the ground, for out of it you were taken. For you are dust, and to dust you shall return." This verse emphasizes that our physical bodies originate from dust and will eventually return to dust, whether through cremation or natural decomposition. It underscores that the preservation of our physical bodies after death is not the primary concern. Moreover, some Christians argue that if Jesus has the divine power to resurrect millions of bodies at his second coming, it should not be difficult for him to raise cremated bodies as well. The power of resurrection is not contingent on the state of the body, but is an act of God's sovereign authority. Christian views on cremation. The beliefs regarding cremation among Christians vary. While the Bible does not mandate a specific method of disposing of the dead, some Christians object to cremation. They argue that God may face difficulties in resurrecting a cremated body and reuniting it with the soul and spirit. 1 Corinthians 15:35-55 is often cited to support this perspective. It states, "It is the same way with the resurrection of the dead. Our earthly bodies are planted in the ground when we die, but they will be raised to live forever. Our bodies are buried in brokenness, but they will be raised in glory. They are buried in weakness, but they will be raised in strength." However, as previously discussed, the ability of God to resurrect bodies is not dependent on their physical state. Whether a body has been cremated or not, God can resurrect it and reunite it with its soul and spirit. This notion is reinforced by the fact that many Christians who died and were buried thousands of years ago are now reduced to dust, a state not dissimilar to cremation. Christian freedom and choice. The question of cremation versus burial ultimately falls within the realm of Christian freedom. It is a choice that individuals should make with the blessing and consideration of their loved ones. There is no biblical mandate dictating a specific method of body disposal, allowing room for personal decisions based on circumstances, cultural practices, and individual preferences. Historical perspective on cremation. To gain a comprehensive understanding of the Christian stance on cremation, it is essential to explore its historical context. Cremation was a common practice among ancient Greeks and Romans, who often believed in the immortality of the soul and considered the body as a mere vessel. In contrast, the ancient Hebrews, followed by early Christians, placed great importance on proper burial. They interred their loved ones in tombs, caves, or earthen graves, often with family members, signifying their belief in a future resurrection. Christian burial sites were referred to as cemeteries, meaning sleeping places, a reflection of the hope of a future resurrection. The early Christians practiced burial as a witness to their anticipation of the resurrection, distinguishing themselves from the Romans and others who preferred cremation. In fact, Christian influence played a significant role in the decline of cremation throughout the Roman Empire. The resurgence of cremation occurred in the 19th century, primarily among free-thinking circles and some Christians who favored it. Over time, cremation gained popularity due to concerns about land use, the cost of traditional funerals, and evolving spiritual beliefs. While the Catholic Church permitted cremation in 1963, many Christians continued to view burial as the preferred mode of body disposal. Biblical perspectives on burning the body. The Bible provides instances of bodies being burned in the Old Testament, although these examples are typically associated with divine judgment and curses. For example, Achan in Joshua 7:25 Saul in 1 Samuel 31:12, and the kingdom of Edom in Amos 2:1, were all involved in events that led to the burning of their bodies. Burning the body in these cases signified punishment and judgment rather than being a positive or preferred method of disposal. In Leviticus 20:14, Leviticus 21:9, Joshua 7:15, Joshua 7:25, and 2 Kings 23:20, burning the body was seen as a sign of disgrace and condemnation. These biblical references do not endorse or promote cremation as a normative practice. Instead, they reflect specific circumstances where the burning of bodies occurred due to particular reasons. The two views on cremation. Within the Christian community, there are two main views regarding cremation. One, cremation prevents resurrection. Some Christians believe that being cremated implies a lack of resurrection because the body is destroyed. They argue that when Jesus was raised from the dead, he returned in the same body that was raised and made perfect. Therefore, Christian believers should not opt for cremation as it might hinder the resurrection of their bodies. 2. Cremation and Christian freedom. Others view cremation as a matter of Christian freedom, emphasizing that the eventual disintegration of the body is inevitable, regardless of the chosen method of disposal. They maintain that God will raise the body from the dead and transform it into a glorified state, regardless of whether it has been cremated or buried. Cremation is seen as expediting the natural process of decomposition, returning the body to dust, as emphasized in Genesis 3:19. In light of the biblical principles and historical context discussed, it is evident that the question of cremation versus burial should be guided by individual preferences and circumstances. While cremation is permitted, a personal recommendation would be to opt for burial whenever possible, in line with the historical practices of Christians and the reverence for the body as created by God. If cremation is chosen, it is essential to bury the ashes rather than retain them in the house, aligning with the biblical principle of returning to the ground from which we were taken. The question of whether Jesus will raise the cremated is one that has generated discussion among Christians for years. While the Bible does not provide a definitive answer, it offers guidance and principles that allow for individual choice and interpretation. Ultimately, the decision between cremation and burial should be made with careful consideration and the blessing of loved ones, recognizing that God's power to resurrect the dead transcends the state of the physical body. Whether cremated or buried, Christians hold firm to the hope of resurrection at the second coming of Jesus Christ, trusting in the sovereignty of God. While we may not have found a definitive answer, we have delved into biblical perspectives, historical context, and varying beliefs among Christians. We hope this discussion has provided you with valuable insights and considerations as you ponder this matter. Ultimately, the choice between cremation and burial is a personal one, made with careful thought and the guidance of your loved ones. In conclusion, whether one is cremated or buried, Christians hold fast to the hope of resurrection at the second coming of Jesus Christ, trusting in the sovereignty of God. May you find clarity and peace in your own reflections on this topic, and may your faith continue to guide you in all matters of life and death. Please share your thoughts and comments on this video. Do you agree with the perspectives presented regarding cremation and its implications for the resurrection in the Christian context? Have you encountered similar discussions within your own faith community? Your insights and opinions are valuable, so feel free to share them below. And that's all for now. Thanks for joining us in this video. If you found this content engaging, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking insights. And remember, your comments are invaluable to us, so share your thoughts below. Until next time, stay tuned for more intriguing stories.